All this week, we continue our celebration of the 100 years of the ICMA's Code of Ethics. But today, we are diving into what it means to uphold integrity, transparency, and accountability, even in a situation of unethical leaders. Mike Conduff and Valerie Lemmie are experts on the issue and are in studio with us now with some advice. Pleasure to have you both today.
Thanks,
Thank you.
All right, I want to get started with you both setting the stage. And how are some of the ways that officials can act unethically?
So when we think about the city manager profession, I mean, obviously all of the misbehavior sorts of things, misusing funds and those sorts of issues. And then there are also, for our ICMA Code of Ethics, we have a tenure requirement. So we ask folks to come and make a big commitment to a community. Sometimes that happens. Then we see where elected officials, particularly with some of the issues going on nationally, become irrational and misbehave as well.
Do you have any examples that you can give us of how maybe somebody has acted unethically?
An example that I can share with you, certainly in my days as city manager, the council, in response to a huge demand about having minority contracting opportunities and ensuring that everyone that had a business in the city had an opportunity to compete for contracts. They wanted to give a contract to someone I felt didn't have the experience, and so in my recommendation, I said, I do not recommend. They voted and decided to do it anyway. The assumption was, well, the council members wanted it, so we felt we had to do it. Well, that's not an excuse. The staff were fired from the person who had the review responsibility, the inspector, to the department head.
Wow.
And so trying to help the elected officials made a very difficult and bad situation worse. It created a real public trust concern on the part of the city council. And so having procedures in place where we were able to recognize the problem, acting immediately as soon as I found out that something was untoward, and being as transparent and as open as possible so that the public understood that this was an isolated case, that there was not a cultural problem or an issue across multiple departments.
Mike, when something like this happens, though, how much damage is done in regards to the public's trust?
The whole issue of trust is so critical for government, right? Because we are largely self-governed. The whole democracy theory rests on the fact that these are citizens that come to the table to do their best. And when that's damaged, it reverberates throughout the organization and throughout the community, sometimes throughout the state. So the whole notion of transparency that Valerie's talked about becomes more critical.
How do you get that trust back?
It takes a long time, and it takes just being very, very clear about what it is that we want to try to do, what it is that we are doing, and what it is that we have done.
So, two-part question. Say you're a city manager or you're working in a city manager's office. You have a suspicion that there's some ethical behavior going on. What can you do? And two, how do you make sure that your office is one that promotes that transparency and accountability?
The first thing is you act immediately. If you suspect something, then you go to the appropriate person. And if we're able as an institution to solve it, at least people know that we have systems in place, we identified the problem ourselves, and we responded. Otherwise, you're liable and you're culpable for what happened.
And how do you create that atmosphere of accountability, transparency, so that somebody in your office feels compelled to do that?
You set the standard early and very clearly. We talk about posting that ICMA Code of Ethics on your wall. Frame it, put it on the wall. The first thing people see when they come in is your code. And then you reference that in all of your actions. And so with the elected officials particularly, you try to articulate, hey, I'm bound by the ICMA Code of Ethics. You can count on me to behave this way.
Okay, and you have a session talking specifically about this coming up tomorrow. When is it and where is it?
It is tomorrow afternoon at 2:15 in the Convention Center.
Absolutely. We'd love to have folks there.
Thank you both so much for your time today and for all of your insight. Very interesting. Thank you.